Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you all to Shady Doorag. He recently did a video on the controversy regarding the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid having Ariel played by a black actress, and I have some thoughts on it, to say the very least.
I know you're upset and it's all a little shocking, but honestly, I'm just so happy to finally meet you.
Hey, hello, how do you do? Shady Doorags here. A long time ago, I made a mental list of things I felt I had to accomplish before I considered myself a real YouTuber. Over the years, I've been able to get most of them done. I got over 100k subscribers, my channel was temporarily deleted, regret adding that to the list by the way. I went full time and I did an ad read. There was just one last thing needed to complete the list. I wanted someone to make a response video to one of my videos and then I could respond back. You know those opinion wars that Just a Robot used to get into? Yeah, I always wanted to be a part of one. Nothing like obsessive, I just wanted to try it once. Unfortunately, this has been something that's eluded me for years because apparently nobody thinks my videos are worth a response. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? All the hot takes I've had and not one YouTuber wants to call me out on them. I was starting to think it was hopeless and that I would forever be half the YouTuber I was meant to be. But dear viewer, sometimes when you hold on to a dream long enough, that dream comes true. For at last, someone made a response video to me. Well, actually, someone did technically respond to one of my videos a while ago. No One Asked Noah gave a response to a few things I said in this video. However, I don't count her because she didn't actually respond to my video. She responded to a video Jar made, which happened to have a clip of my video in it. This new response video I found is a full video made just to respond to me. My ego is excited. A commentator by the name Tater decided one of my videos was just too ridiculous not to give some backlash. And which video did this almighty savior of dreams decide to tackle? Oh, this is gonna be good. Now, before we get started, let's make some things clear. First of all, I will not be doing this to anyone and everyone who makes a commentary about me. This is a special occasion because I've always wanted to do something like this. I mean, I'll probably still do commentaries and response videos. In fact, I have another one in the works, but I don't plan on making it a habit to respond to videos done on me. Second, I've seen enough of these on Jar's channel to know how this goes. Some of you intellectuals are gonna wanna find the original video and give this guy your own thoughts. That's fine. It'll help his views and his engagement. Just remember to be civil and respectable. I didn't make all those videos about empathy and communication so my audience could go off starting internet harassment. Also, keep in mind this guy is punching up. You're always at risk of massive backlash when you do something like that, and some people aren't as ready for it as they should be. All right, I got my angry shady face ready. Let's do this. The video's called Throwing Shady Doorags. Oh, I get it. Took me a second. Dude, you might want to think about changing that thumbnail. It barely says anything about what you're covering. A good thumbnail gives you hints at a glance. Glancing at yours, most people would probably think it's just one of my videos instead of a response to one. Here, screen cap your computer and you can use this one instead.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you all to Shady Doorag, a cartoon reviewer who also talks about societal issues and politics from time to time.
Actually, it's Shady Doorags. The name being plural is important because, why is Doorags plural?
He recently did a video on the controversy regarding the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid having Ariel played by a black actress, and I have some thoughts on it, to say the very least, because, wow, it is something else.
But you have heard of me.
I haven't seen any evidence that Halle Bailey was specifically picked for the role based on her race.
Well, Disney has what you might call a pattern of behavior. Whenever they do anything that is considered even slightly progressive, they feel the need to scream it at the top of their lungs, though they make sure they do it in a place where China can't hear them.
Meredith Roberts and like our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. Let's have these two characters kiss. Let's in the background. I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness.
While race swapping isn't new, it's often done in modern media to be inclusive and or diverse rather than for enhancing the artwork on its own. There is no obvious creative reason why Disney would change Ariel's character to being black, so it's not an outlandish assumption to believe they had progressive reasons for doing so.
I haven't seen any evidence that Halle Bailey was specifically picked for the role based on her race, and instead believe it's more likely she's just an accomplished actress with a history of working for Disney.
Well, Well, like I said in the original video, I could care less about this specific actress, but rather it's the character design I have a problem with. Keep the actress, but change the design in post, and I'll pretty much shut up. But Shady, isn't that white? Yes, and as long as it isn't being done to keep a certain race out of media, nor to perpetuate racial stereotypes to a serious degree, then it's no more raucous than casting a black person to play a white animated character.
I also believe that cultural homogeny is a two-way street, and as of right now, we're seeing a greater melting pot between what is typically considered black and white culture than we've ever seen before.
Are we though? From what I've seen, people are real quick to point out what experiences are limited to specific races.
I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand?
And we, the descendants of slaves in America, have earned reparations for their suffering. And continue to earn reparations every moment we spend submerged in the systemic prejudice, racism, and white supremacy.
When I was in school, I was taught that America was once a raucous nation and that some of that raucous still exists today. That was it. Today, we have this thing called CRT, which does the opposite of blurring the lines, telling people their experiences in life are based heavily on their race. Obviously, I personally think anyone of any skin color can understand what is typically viewed as a racially locked issue, but to say society as a whole is becoming better at sharing this opinion feels like it's ignoring both modern media and people's responses to it.
If that's okay, then I don't really see an issue with a black person playing a character from a European fairy tale.
What a coincidence! Me either. Will I, an online personality, side with you and validate your opinion, or will I give you another video to type angry comments in? Am I on your side or the enemy's?
Am I the only one who finds something incredibly condescending about YouTubers who begin their videos by treating their audience like a bunch of screaming banshees who plan on going on some kind of rabies-induced rampage the second they hear something that's a different opinion from theirs?
No, you are not the only one who feels this way. I just saw a video that did that and it annoyed the crap out of me. However, that is not what I did in my video. First of all, in case you're not familiar with my channel, I love telling jokes and I usually take the hyperbolic approach to said jokes. The diction and tone used when I say these lines makes it obvious that I'm not being as serious as I could be. Second, the message I'm giving out is not an example of my typical audience member. It's an extreme example of something a lot of people encounter on the internet: toxic fandom. There is an element of truth to it, but it also doesn't represent everyone. Yes, I'm saying this to my audience as if they're the ones doing it, but given the joking tone of what I'm saying and the fact that this is a common occurrence across the internet, it should come across very clear that I'm not attacking them directly.
However, opening the video by essentially saying that anybody who watches it either wants their opinion mindlessly regurgitated back to them, or plans to just fling shit at a wall in response to what you say, not only casts your audience in an extremely bad light, but also makes you sound incredibly defensive. With that said, it does give you a very convenient excuse to dismiss those criticizing you. After all, they must be those angry, irrational people who dare view you as the enemy.
It would also give those who disagree with me a very convenient excuse against anyone who takes my side. After all, they must be one of those mindless peons who just wants to be validated. In case you didn't notice, at this point in the video, I haven't made my opinion known yet. Thus, the comment I made does not single out anyone who agrees nor disagrees with me. I potentially could be talking about anyone, including other people who don't like the Little Mermaid change. Why would I attack those who agree with me as much as those who don't if I was just looking for a scapegoat? Spoilers, I wasn't just looking for a scapegoat. I do this because the comment is a setup. A setup for what, you may ask? Well, you cut the clip right before the payoff came. Here's what it is in its entirety. Will I, an online personality, side with you and validate your opinion, or will I give you another video to type angry comments in? Am I on your side or the enemy's? And this, dear viewer, is why I hate the culture war. The whole point of me talking about people who either rage without properly listening or simply want validation is to set up the point of the culture war, not to attack my audience. I want to talk about the culture war, but I need a proper lead-in from the subject I was just on. I'm making a segue. The lead-in works fine when you keep the context intact and understand the joking nature of what was said. And this, dear viewer, is why I hate the culture war.
It has this bad habit of making me both paranoid and condescending.
Oh, so you do have the clip. You just put it somewhere else in your video where it wouldn't be as effective. Also, the culture war didn't make me like that. I've always been paranoid and condescending. Normally, looking at the message is only supposed to be a part of reviewing media.
Well, wait a minute, where exactly is the line there?
The way art works is you use a process to physically yet indirectly communicate ideas to other people. The communicated idea itself matters very little. The important thing is how well the idea was communicated through the art piece. A moral and/or message is part of the communicated idea. Thus, I would say that in most cases, these elements have a very negligible impact on whether a piece of art can be good. Let me give you an example with a different medium. Have you ever heard of the song My R? If not, there'll be a link to Anna Pantsu's cover in the description. A lot of people love that song, partially because of the message it brings. But if I made a horrible song with the same message, girls get sad and sometimes it is much worse than you think, that doesn't suddenly make the song good, because despite having a similar message that inspired the creation of the song, the execution of it is horrible. Conversely, you can make a great song that has an awful message behind it.
The bunny, whoa, I love the bunny.
At what point is a message so abhorrent that you are allowed to condemn a work on its message alone? Might I remind you, there are several examples of messages in films leading people to do incredibly bad things.
Okay, but were those films bad? An art's impact on society, whether good or bad, does not determine its value as a piece of art.
To give just one example, let's talk about the 1915 movie The Birth of a Nation.
This video is getting demonetized, isn't it?
An incredibly racist propaganda piece based off of Thomas Dixon's 1905 novel, The Klansman.
Sure, but is it a good movie?
Essentially arguing that because the white man is genetically superior, it is his responsibility to civilize all other races and cultures across the world.
Sure, but is it a good movie?
Well, Birth of a Nation, it should not surprise you to learn, is incredibly racist.
Sure, but is it a good movie?
However, it was also incredibly successful, essentially inventing what we would currently call blockbusters.
Sure, but is it, oh wait, you're talking about popularity and success. Those are both irrelevant to my point. Popularity nor success equate to quality. The video you are currently responding to is debatably successful and popular, but I assume your opinion is that it is a bad video. Or maybe you think it's a good video just with a bad message. Nah?
The point is, messages in media do actually influence people.
I don't recall ever saying that they didn't do that. In fact, I said I participate in the culture war, which means I must believe messages influence people.
And as such, we as a society should condemn works that have bad messages.
There's a lot there that I disagree with. However, the main thing I want to zero in on is, let's say you're right in condemning media solely on bad messages. Does that mean we should just accept media solely on good messages and ignore whether or not said media was delivered well? Because something tells me you would not agree to that. What you might not know is that today, you can't walk 5 feet in modern media without stubbing your toe on something involved in the culture war.
Yeah, if you try to engage in culture, the culture war is going to come up.
What? No! That is not an automatic! First of all, I said media, not culture. You're conflating those two terms. Here's a song. Did your brain immediately jump to thinking this was pushing some kind of message about society? I highly doubt it, because that wasn't why the song was made. Second, the statement you made assumes that any message that might be pushed in media must be a part of the culture war. The culture war is a war, as in there is conflict. Most people, in America at least, agree that teaching kids to share is a good message. So a show that talks about sharing while being part of American culture is not a part of the culture war. Modern media is choosing to push messages that specifically want to participate in the culture war. In the current culture war, a huge part of the reason it exists is because Hollywood has decided that everything must be political, or they believe catering to the people who feel that way is the best way to increase their sales.
Wait, I thought it existed because we're all humans with different values. You know, like you said was the case earlier in this video. To be fair, Shady did say this was specifically the case for the modern culture war, so maybe he means that old ones were driven for this purpose but not new ones? But if that's the case, why even bring up the other definition? Nothing about this makes any sense.
No! That was a basic definition of what a culture war is. You played the clip where I specifically said the modern culture war feels like it's everywhere compared to the culture war in general. I then followed that complaint up with an explanation that I feel like the current culture war is everywhere because Hollywood either wants to be involved or they think it's profitable. I made that very clear. The problem I have with this, or rather the biggest problem, because the culture war has given me a lot of headaches, is that through this lens, it becomes impossible to have an objective opinion on anything.
That's already impossible because opinions are by definition subjective.
This is a semantics argument and it's a little confusing, not just on Tater's part. Depending on the definition you use for opinion, objective, and subjective, yes, it is technically impossible to have an objective opinion. However, what I'm specifically referring to is an opinion based on objective qualities rather than subjective ones, which is possible, though that would technically be a misplaced modifier on my end. I love the Sonic the Hedgehog movie because I like the character Sonic. That is a subjective opinion. I also think that same movie is okay at best because it has a massive plot hole. That is an objective opinion. The immediate thought of a lot of people is, oh, he must be a raucous.
A raucous? Like somebody who's prejudiced against rocks?
Because people don't know how to look at a man's profile picture.
It is a well-known fact that black people cannot be prejudiced against rocks.
Okay, that was actually a funny joke. You should have left out the first line though. Just the it is a well-known fact bit was enough.
Black people can be racist against other black people. That's quite literally what the term Uncle Tom means.
That's quite literally not the definition of an Uncle Tom. An Uncle Tom is a black person who desperately wants to please white people. Now, some people do use the term like that because Uncle Toms are generally known to be raucous towards black people, but that's not what the term means. But to your main point, yes, black people can be raucous to their own. My specific point, however, was that it's most people's instinct to call someone who criticizes a black actor raucous until they see said critic is also black. After that discovery, rarely is most people's instincts to believe the black critic is raucous themselves, but rather they were influenced by someone else. While it is definitely possible, and I have seen it, in my experience, it is not most people's instincts to think someone is prejudiced against their own kind. 15 years ago, I could have critiqued Disney changing Ariel's skin color, and people would have been willing to listen to my argument as to why, even if they disagree with it.
Unlike today, where 77,000 people are willing to listen to your argument.
Ah, yes, because not only is that number relevant in the terms of millions to possibly billions we're talking about, but we all know that view counts accurately measure people who listen to arguments. I'm sure none of those people clicked off the video, I'm sure none of them were asleep while it was playing, and I'm sure none of them did what you're doing now, which is not actually listening to what was said. Imagine if the Beast in the live-action version of his movie looked like a giant frog or something. Sure, he'd still be a beast, but you'd be constantly asking yourself why such a change was made.
Okay, I get your point. I don't agree with it, but I get it. However, I want to begin by asking, did you just compare changing races to changing species?
Yes, because my point is character design and audience recognition regardless if race is involved or not. If I used another example that involved race, my point wouldn't get across because we'd still be talking about race.
This is an especially odd comparison because the Beast in Beauty and the Beast is not a real creature. It's a chimera. So yeah, changing him from a completely fictional species to a frog, a species that actually exists, would be pretty damn weird.
How does that affect my point, which is that the Beast looking drastically different would take people out of the experience? Fine, change him to another fictional creature. He too can be a black mermaid. That doesn't change my point.
As for his wider argument, well, it assumes two things. The first one being that everyone who watches the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid has seen the original animated one, which statistically is very unlikely.
I'm sorry, what? First of all, this is a Disney movie. Even if you haven't seen the original animated movie, if you've heard of Disney, you've heard of their version of Ariel. She's part of the Disney Princess lineup, which features their most popular characters. She started the Disney Renaissance. I would bet money that virtually everyone who's heard of Disney can immediately picture Ariel in their head. Ergo, whether you've seen the original movie or not, you know that this is not this. Second, like I said in the video, Disney wants this. They are purposefully marketing their live action remakes to people who have seen the originals. Jon Favreau admitted that he tried to elicit emotions from the original Lion King while making his version.
Music is such an emotional touchstone, especially when it connects you to the experience of either seeing the stage show or the original.
They bring back all the memories of how you felt when you were younger watching this.
That's why the shots, the music, all the things that bring up emotions of nostalgia are similar to their animated versions. You think Black Ariel sings Part of Your World because it was perfect for this teaser and not because we would instantly recognize that song?
And the second one is it's Disney's fault if somebody has seen the animated one and is unable to enjoy this one because of differences between it and the original.
Yes, because they orchestrated both the similarities and the changes.
Specifically the fact that Ariel is a different race now.
It's not that she's a different race. It's that she has a distractingly different character design from her well-known animated counterpart that Disney is trying to give us nostalgia for.
Which is just wrong. And to explain why, well, let's use the Beast as an example still, and have a little bit of fun. You see, I can actually think of several circumstances where the design of the Beast in Disney's original animated adaptation would be incredibly distracting to a viewer. For example, a viewer could have first experienced the story of Beauty and the Beast through the 1987 and 1988 anime anthology series Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics, where the Beast looked like this.
So it's a completely different version of the story.
Or maybe they first experienced the story through the 1990 anthology series Britannica Tales from Around the World, where the Beast looked like this.
So it's a completely different version of the story.
Maybe they first experienced it through the 1976 East German stop-motion adaptation, where the Beast was an elephant.
So it's a completely different version of the story.
If somebody sees these earlier adaptations before seeing the Disney one, and then dislikes the Disney one due to the radically different design of the Beast, that's not Disney's fault.
In the video, I say, Disney isn't just making another version of The Little Mermaid. They're adapting their specific animated version. This implies that if Disney did just remake it completely, a different character design for Ariel would not be as distracting, because we aren't expected to make comparisons to the animated version while watching.
So why would it be Disney's fault if an audience member feels the same way about Ariel being a different race? It doesn't make any sense.
I could explain why, but I literally already did. Disney isn't just making another version of The Little Mermaid. They're adapting their specific animated version, which stars a very well-known Caucasian redhead. They want me thinking of their animated version while I watch the live-action version, but doing that while making their protagonist so drastically different takes me out of the experience. When I see this person, I no longer see Ariel. I see someone playing Ariel. I am no longer immersed. You have reminded me that this piece of fiction is fictional.
Oh, here I was thinking you'd be reminded it's fictional because there are mermaids in it.
Let me explain to you how immersion works. Immersion is not ruined by something being unrealistic. If it was, we could never enjoy fictional stories. It is known in your mind that all fiction isn't reality. That's why it's called fiction. We allow ourselves to believe the fictional worlds we are experiencing exist separate from our own, that worlds have their own rules and thus will not line up with reality. In short, realistic does not mean believable. However, something can disrupt that belief, taking people out of the experience. Something like a story breaking the rules of its own world, the characters breaking the fourth wall, or designs not matching what the world has set up. It is the movie creator's job to try and keep the audience as immersed as possible so they can best enjoy the film. Ariel's design would not break most people's immersion if they simply remade the story entirely. People were fine with The Wiz. People were fine with this Cinderella. This doesn't work because it's not completely remade. It's just putting a new skin onto something that was already done. And we're gonna notice the differences that stand out. And you know what? This might not even be a movie ruiner. It's just a bad decision. The reason there's so much intensity behind Ariel's change is because it's something that's been done repeatedly in the past decade, and in that same time, repeatedly attached to bad products. What used to be a simple bad artistic choice is now a big glaring warning to a lot of people that a bad product is coming, and along the way, it will try to ruin something good. And people who call out this bad decision are repeatedly labeled some prejudiced term. Maybe if Hollywood just made good movies instead of hiding behind diversity when their numbers suck, we might not have this problem. And that's the video, guys. It kind of goes without saying, but obviously this did not change my mind. I still think Ariel being black in the live action version was a bad decision. Probably the biggest problem with this video is something I noticed from quite a few commentators, including ones that I like. That is, Tater doesn't think about the points being made in their entirety. He finds the slight detail of a point and rebuts that detail instead of the point as a whole. It's something a lot of people do when arguing. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I accidentally did it in this video as well. Feel free to call me out if I did. Even still, I thank Tater for making this video. Regardless of who was right or who was wrong, I can finally move on with my life, feeling I have rightfully earned my status as a YouTuber. This has been Shady Doorags. So long, farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.